All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning back into the Chips and Salt Show, New Mexico. This is our second show of the week. Thank you so much. Alice Lotta is taking the day off. It's her anniversary. I think it's 42 years. Forgive me for not remembering, but her and Mark are taking the day off. Filling in is Mr. Badass, Michael Caine. He ran for district attorney the last go around. We got really close during that time. And he's just an awesome dude. I'm glad he was able to fill in for Alice, and so was she. She was very grateful. Thank you, sir, for coming in and filling in. So for those of you who don't know who Michael Caine is, he's still practicing law, criminal defense attorney, family law attorney. But Mike, please introduce the newer audience to who you are and give us your spiel, sir.
I'll give you a mini bio. I've been practicing law for going on 26 years. I'm a graduate of the Regent University School of Law. I'm originally from Western North Carolina. I spent a large portion of my life in the military. I had kind of a weird military career. I started out in the Coast Guard, went through engineering school, and then got out and went into the Army as an enlisted person. Later on, I commissioned as an officer, ended up coming out as a captain. It's how I actually ended up here. I'm originally from Western North Carolina, but one of the tours I had on active duty was out at Fort Bliss in 1989.
Wow.
And that's where I met Mrs. Caine. She's from El Paso. So when I got out of law school, we decided to relocate back out here and put down roots. So that's kind of the mini bio story of why I'm here.
That's so awesome. And Mrs. Caine is hanging out with us right over here. Thank you so much for joining us. She's our audience in full. And so, you know, you did some military time and you ended up deciding to stay here and kind of lay a foundation here, grow some roots here. Yeah. I really appreciate you coming around here. It's really hard to find a conservative attorney in New Mexico. I mean, it's extraordinarily difficult.
You know, you might be surprised. I mean, honestly, this is what's kind of backwards. Most of the private criminal defense bar are actually pretty conservative.
Right.
It's kind of backwards. I mean, I think a lot of I'm not trying to throw off anybody. I think most of the people that work for the government are probably pretty liberal.
Right.
But the ones who are in private practice, most of us are business people and we're conservatives. And when I say conservatives, I mean, I'm a Ronald Reagan conservative. I'm a small L libertarian, old school conservative. I don't think a lot of people know what that word means anymore.
No, they've kind of gotten away with it. They've stolen words and kidnapped words and stuff, and they've kind of reframed them. But you know, as far as conservative attorneys here in New Mexico and like in the medical field, it's hard to find any kind of like conservative Republican like professionals. The reality is, guys, is that we're inundated. It's a Democrat state. There's way more registered Democrats than there are Republicans in this state. It's been a blue state for a very long time. So I think a lot of people, and I'm not saying this is about you. I mean, that's why I respect you so much, because even in this deep blue state with all these, you know, Democrat politicians, you stay true to who your roots are and your belief system, and you champion being a Republican. But I think most people, to kind of get along, to get it, you know, to segue through the system, they'll say they're Democrat, but they vote a certain way. That's just my opinion now.
Well, I come from a my dad was the first person in my family that ever voted for a Republican. He voted for Richard Nixon in 1972, and then Nixon turned around and got impeached. My grandfather wouldn't speak to me for about 6 months after he found out I voted for Reagan. So, but they were all conservative people.
Right.
And I think people today, there's a lot of conservative people that still go, I'm a Democrat, but I think the Democrat Party's up and left them, honestly.
And then what is conservative anymore these days? It's just really hard to determine. It's like we're kind of going more towards a set of base values. I'm seeing a rise in the conservative Democrats. And I think for me, it's like being a conservative Democrat or a conservative is like you're just trying to like better your community. You're trying to better your schools. You're trying to better the economy. It's like basic stuff, because I feel like the left has gotten so far radical left that they saw how destructive that was. The regular lay Democrats saw how destructive that was, and I think they're making a natural pivot towards the middle.
I don't know if I'm seeing that yet or not. I think through this cycle, I think the far left end of the Dem Party is going to be the controlling thing, because if you notice, all the Democrats are trying to cater to that end of it.
Right.
Every single commercial on TV, they have that little jab in there. I'm going to fight Trump. Well, what are you going to do? Get in a mud hole and fight him? I mean, it's like, what, I'm running for land commissioner, but I'm going to fight Trump. What are you going to do? I mean, it's almost like a slogan with them. And the thing of it is, Trump isn't a doctrinaire, what we would call conservative. He's transactional. He just wants to get things fixed,
right,
more than anything else.
Right. I love that you said that. He's transactional. That's like kind of what a politician is, and I've had to open my mind to that in my later years being in politics. It's like, look, you got to reach across the aisle sometimes. Like, you know, people don't really give him that much crap because he was a Democrat for a long time and he donated a lot of money to the Democrats.
And everybody loved him then.
And everybody loved him then.
I didn't actually like him too much then.
I didn't either. Honestly, bro, I didn't like him either, man. When he first came around, I was like, oh, he's racist. You know, all the people who are Republicans or support him are racist. I was very close-minded. I was in college. I was a hardcore progressive Bernie Sanders supporter. I'm not going to hide that. I'm being honest about that. But not you though. You've been a hard conservative Republican pretty much most of your life. But like you say, you're more of a libertarian. You don't want to position yourself as an extremist, of course.
Well, but you know, societally, I'm a person that comes from a different place and a different time. And when I was growing up in the mountains in North Carolina back in the 1960s, I was raised Southern Baptist, and Southern Baptists, you know, make a big deal out of, oh, they don't drink alcohol and all this stuff. And yet there were people in our church who were moonshiners. I mean, as funny as that sounds. And then you would, even as a kid, I would say, well, you know, but so forth and so on makes moonshine. And they'd go, oh, he's just providing for his family. He can make more money doing that than he can raising pigs or
anything
corn,
else.
You know? Yeah, I mean, that's what, and people looked at, he's just feeding his kids. But when you're raised in, I'm Scots-Irish, and Scots-Irish are by nature very much people who keep their nose in their own business. I don't care what anybody does. I just don't want them trying to make me do anything that I don't want to do.
Right. Right. And you know, honestly, man, it's been a while since we've hung out, and I really enjoy talking to you, man. I forgot how much I enjoy just hanging out with you because you're so grounded, you're so down to earth. And straight up, I've dealt with lawyers most of my life. Honestly, I wanted to go to law school for a long time. And so when I first met you, it was really refreshing to hear you just, you know, speak so clearly and so down to earth about these are touchy political issues. We're jumping right into it, right? And so, no, man, it's good to hear from you. Thank you again for joining in on us. Let's delve into some local stuff here, guys. I mean, sure. You know, a big thing, and I don't know how much you studied this. I just heard about it. The whole thing with MLG, like calling, you know, women to come out and vote so that way they can win elections and stuff like that. I don't know what's going on with that. I mean, I can say something about it, but have you had a chance to look at that?
I saw that. It just smacks of as dumb. I mean, I don't know. When I ran for office, I didn't care whether you were a Democrat or Republican or a man or a woman. I was looking for a vote because I wanted to go do and serve people all together. I don't believe in trying to factionalize people and divide people up, but I assume she's thinking that's probably their strong voting base. That would be my assumption, but you sure can't win unless some men vote with you. So I would think she'd be trying to encourage everyone, but.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, it's a divisive thing, right? Why are you going to chop people up more already? It's already like you're red versus blue, and now you're going to go women versus man. I mean, that's a very Marxist thing for her to do, and it doesn't surprise me. I'm so sick of her, but in like subconsciously, I know she's almost out of here. So I kind of like, I've gotten callous to the things that she does. I'm like, whatever, she's going to be gone soon anyway, you know? But it just seems very sexist, and it just seems inappropriate. If a man was a governor and he came out and said, oh, we need you, only the men to come out and vote, I mean, he would be hammered, bro.
Absolutely plowed under. I mean, if a Republican man governor said that and got up and said, I want all you guys to come out and vote for me, I mean, they would just plow him under.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't conceive of why someone would say something like that.
And that wraps the left up in a nutshell. Basically, it's like they're always just capitalizing on these double standards. They're never held accountable for any of this crazy cockamamie stuff that they say. It's all good when they do it, but when one of us, man, you know, we fart the wrong way or whatever, we freaking end up, you know, all over the news.
Well, Ronald Reagan had a really good saying. I'm fond of a lot of the things he said, but one of his beliefs was that when the economy got better, he used to use the term that a rising tide lifted all the boats.
Right, yeah.
And people have gotten away from the Judeo-Christian, and I'm not here to preach, that's not what I'm talking
Preach
about.
it, man.
But the thing of it is we get, people go, well, we're not a Christian nation, but a lot of the things that we believe in as a people, as a culture, equality before the law. That's a Judeo-Christian concept.
100%.
E pluribus unum. It's right on the back of our money. Out of many, one. That don't mean we come here and we go, I'm a little part of this group and a little part of that. That means you get here and you're an American. And I learned that when I was in the military. I like to tell folks that, and it was actually 46 years ago this weekend that I left to go to basic training.
Wow.
It was the weekend before Memorial Day, and I'll never forget the first time I met my drill instructor, and he taught me two very important things. And one of those things was you're all equally worthless. And I like to, it's kind of a joke. I say, you're all equally worthless and believe nothing that you hear and half of what you see. And I actually put those things into AI and it sent it back to me. And I said, what do these things mean? And it said, you are all equally worthless, keeps you in perspective that you're not better than anybody else.
Right.
You only care about, you're on the team now. It's not a you, it's a team. And then the other thing is, the other saying forces you to think critically. You don't just believe the first thing that someone pops out. You say, show me, prove it to me, come up and show me. So, I mean, I like to tell people, my grandson's 8 years old and I've been teasing him. I told him he's got till he's turned 17. We're going to take him down and enlist him. He's like, oh, I don't want to join the Army. I'm like, no, I think you and the recruiter would have a lot to talk about. So
Maybe you can do the Marines.
I doubt it. I doubt that.
No, yeah, I mean, it's absolutely a biblically founded nation this country is, and like to kind of go back to MLG and how divisive she is, and like how the Marxists are always trying to like find ways to divide us up, but with the Bible and with our Constitution and Western civilization as a whole, we're always trying to unify people. We're always trying to look at each other as equals, which again is a biblical thing. But I think that's the sharp difference between our country here in America and this the philosophy of the founding fathers that was biblically based, and these Marxists and these communists where they're always trying to divide people and oppress people, but we're always trying to unify people and raise people up. So that to me is just how I feel about things.
Well, the benefit of getting old, there's a lot of downside to it, but there's some good side, and that is the perspective of looking back and seeing you've lived enough history that you've seen things before.
Right.
And I can tell you throughout my life, since I've been aware of politics and so forth, the left has just rarely been right about anything looking back. They're just about batting 1,000, and they like to take credit for certain things that they really didn't come up with. And the other thing they like to do is they like to invent a problem, and then they come up with a solution, and then when it don't work, they blame it on everybody else.
Right.
So I think myself and most other Americans are just tired of this nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, and so you say that with a lot of confidence that the left has just been so wrong for so long, and they wanted to invest in these social programs, and we see now that just doesn't really work. And then, like, especially, and we were talking about this the other day, where we're talking about you coming in. Here in New Mexico, we've been the worst state in the country for quite some time now, and then here we go. We've got people like, hey, vote for Deb Hall, and let's vote. Let's get another Democrat in there. And it's like, come on, man, you want to do it again? You want to do this again?
Well, and go back to history a little bit. Ronald Reagan and Rush Limbaugh both used to talk about, our leftist friends are just so sure of themselves, but they're sure of the wrong thing. And Rush Limbaugh used to say this repeatedly. And he would say, if you listen to the left, they'll tell you the right people just haven't tried socialism and communism yet. If you let us get in charge of it, we'll get it right.
Yeah.
And it's like, it just don't work. It goes contrary to human nature. Right. Nobody, when you put the government in charge of everything, there's just inherent corruption there. You take away people's incentive, which is a human incentive to want to better themselves.
Yeah.
Work is biblical. You should be wanting to work. It gives you fulfillment. It gives you a purpose in life.
100%.
It's one of the reasons I'm hesitant to retire. I've got friends that are, over the last couple of 3 years, my friends have started retiring, and they're like, when are you going to retire? And I'm like, I don't know that I ever will, really.
No, yeah.
I mean,
I don't think you should, man.
I'm
honestly.
healthy and I can go to work. I mean, I'm able to take more time off now, which I enjoy that. But I've spent my life building my practice, and it's there, and I do a good job in it. And it does bring a lot of self-satisfaction to help people with their problems. So
I'm sure it does, and we need your help. We need more attorneys like you here in this state. We need more good attorneys here. As you know, there's a big shortage of attorneys here in the area. It's hard to find a good attorney for anything around here. But to kind of go back to the point of where the left has been wrong for so long, and and I always kind of throw them under the bus with the Marxist thing, but and maybe we'll disagree on this, but I've noticed a huge shift in the Democrat Party, and I think it's just because it's such a blue area. And I know so many people, and they're all kind of naturally migrating towards like a base of like, I don't want to say a MAGA base, but they're just going back to common sense values, and they have a lot of power. I mean, we just saw John Munoz get in there in city council. he's not a far left radical, but he is a Democrat. He's a proud Democrat. But he's at, to me, him and his supporters, and what I experienced talking to a lot of people in the area, they're at a base level now where we can kind of agree on a lot of stuff. Like we want less crime, we want a better economy, better schools. So I don't know if you've seen that or not, but I feel like I have. I know I have.
Well, I think you're right to some extent. I mean, I've said for years I don't think JFK could get elected dog catcher in the modern Democrat Party.
No way.
He would be considered a radical right-wing extremist by anyone that's in a position of power in the Democrat Party today.
Right.
But those are the people who are up in the positions of holding the offices, and they're the ones with the bully pulpit. I don't think a lot of Democrats agree with that, quite frankly. I just don't think they do.
Right.
So
right, and so yeah, I mean, I would agree with you. JFK would be considered a far right radical extremist because compared to JFK, Trump is a moderate. You know what I mean? Trump's a moderate compared to JFK.
I mean, honestly, I would vote for JFK if he ran tomorrow.
Oh, of course, everybody would. Yeah,
every day of the week, I'm a JFK. I would be a JFK Democrat every day of the week.
He wanted to disintegrate the CIA. I mean, that was beautiful. When that's when they took him out shortly after that, right?
Right after that.
I mean, yeah, but so that's what, to me, that's the big contrast is like, that's why he's if Trump came out there and said he was going to get rid of and disintegrate the CIA, I mean, wow, you know what I mean? That would really piss off a lot of people.
But I mean, Trump's wanting to get rid of the education department, but gee whiz, I grew up before there was an education department, and most of the people I grew up with actually grew up pretty well educated.
That's a good point.
We learned things in school that, I'm still a member of a Facebook group with people that I grew up with and the folks that I grew up with and graduated high school with. And if you took the mean average of people there with common sense and level of knowledge and working knowledge, it's way above what I see with a lot of younger people now. And I know
it's so bad.
I know that's a generational thing, and people have been saying that ever since Socrates. I know that. But by the same token, I graduated from high school the year before the education department came into being.
No way.
The year.
So you were there before there was even a nationalized education system?
There wasn't a national education department.
Wow.
When I was in elementary school in the county that I lived, there was a county school superintendent who had one secretary, and his was a part-time job.
Damn. It's so radically different now. And I think the biggest problem when Trump comes out there and says he wants to get the education department is because people don't have a point of reference. Like me, I didn't even think about that. You actually grew up without the, nationalized public education system. But then, like you said, people who weren't involved with it, people back then were way more sophisticated than they are now. So they not only can they not imagine a society without a nationalized public education system, but the system is so dependent on it. There's so many teachers unions. It's all so dependent on this like bureaucracy.
But the bureaucracy, you just hit it right there. There's all these bureaucrats. The public school system looks like this. It's an inverted funnel. It's a funnel like this. And instead of being the teacher at the top with people to support them, it's the teachers at the bottom with all these bureaucrats sitting up here hoarding up resources.
Right.
I mean, if you go into the Las Cruces Public School building, there's people that are sitting in there making 2 or 3 times what a teacher makes and hoarding up resources. My daughter's a school teacher here in Las Cruces, and she has to go to Walmart and buy her own supplies for her schoolroom. Yeah. Based on what?
Yeah, that's crazy. And I honestly, I know how bad the public education system is. I've been through it. I graduated high school to 1.75, I believe it was. It was pathetic. I never even went, and they just pushed me through. I begged them to, but I was able to still join the military, and I had a hard time in the military because I was so uneducated. I had a hard time reading and comprehending basic manuals and stuff. They almost kicked me out because of it.
Really?
Yeah, and so thankfully Sergeant Brooks took me under his wing. He taught me how to study. And I was actually able to become one of the most certified people on the base. And I've gotten really good at school ever since. But man, I was so far behind in the education system. I had to retake, when I got out of the military, I had to retake English, retake math. I was in there with middle schoolers and high schoolers that were advanced, right? So I'm this 22-year-old guy taking these remedial education classes because the public education had failed me so bad. So I know how bad it is. And your daughter's a teacher. And so she... it's a good career. I like teachers. I wish we could pay them more and give them more freedom so they can actually teach, but they have so much restrictions they can't even teach. And then the kids come into these classrooms and they're just a wreck. Their home life is probably a wreck. Poor kids. I'm not blaming them, but the teachers these days have to deal with so much, man. It's a mess. I would rather to see the public education system go away personally.
Well, I've heard people refer to it as the government schools.
Yeah.
It's not really public. And I'm not, look, my grandmother was a school teacher. She raised me.
Oh wow.
My grandfather was a school teacher. My dad was a teacher before he became an attorney. I taught school while I was in law school, although it was a community college. I was teaching a paralegal program.
That's
so
cool.
we have a strong background of teachers in our family. So when people go, oh, you're anti-education. No, not exactly. I'm just not exactly in favor of having this great big huge faceless bureaucracy sitting there sucking up resources when teachers can't afford the supply. I mean, good God, I lived with my grandma and grandpa growing up. My grandmother taught fourth grade. She didn't have to go to the store and buy paper and crayons and stuff like that. The schools provided them.
Yeah. No, I hear about that, how bad it is in the public education system. And that's why it's so important to get a good governor in there because, I've protested at the public school boards before. I've been out there and I see what the pattern is. And it's just this patternistic thing that we see all throughout our government here in New Mexico. It's nationwide too, but they just throw all this money at these problems and these programs that have never been proven to work. There is no inductive logic, no inductive reasoning. They just throw the dice on these maybe they'll work programs and it never ends up good. Look how bad shape this education is.
Well, one of those things that we went full cycle on was whole language, trying to teach kids to read and write with whole language.
What do you mean whole language?
It was a way that they were trying to teach kids about 25 years ago. They got away from phonics, which is the way we taught young kids how to read for 300 years. And we were just going, this is a word, this is foot, F-O-O-T. It's just, that's the word. And you would look at it and you identify it and you just kind of memorize the word. You don't know how to go foot. My granddaughter is 5 now and she's learning phonics. It's actually kind of funny to watch her try to spell words because she's trying to spell them by sounding them out. And she misspells them. She's getting there, but she just graduated kindergarten, but they've gone back in that respect to what works. And, for years, they wouldn't even teach a child how to sign their name. They go, oh, well, they've got a computer. Your signature actually becomes part of your identity. When you tell somebody, when you're not teaching someone how to do cursive writing and sign their name, you're robbing them of their identity.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's part of a larger point. You mentioned earlier that you're using AI, and I use AI. Everybody's starting to use AI now, but it's like, we're getting so far disconnected from reality, and the kids, they do have a issue enunciating things. I run into kids and talk to people all the time, and these younger generations their vernacular is not very strong. Everybody's so addicted to social media and their screens, and the writing cursive and learning how to read and comprehend at that level is so important for human consciousness and just self-awareness. It scares me to see what the future holds. I feel like all these data centers getting pulled up. Have you studied those data centers?
Yeah, I've done some research.
What do you think about those?
The whole thing of course, I grew up now in a time when there wasn't a camera on every street corner watching you with facial recognition software and license tag readers.
Yeah.
And I've done federal criminal defense work, and it is scary how much the government knows what we do when they really want to start sniffing around. They know exactly where you are,
right,
what you're doing, who you're with, what kind of car you're in. And that's just, you put that and everybody goes, what makes us safe? And this is one of those things where I'm going to err on this side. So it's either going to make us safe or it's going to make us free. But liberty is the greatest virtue in our republic.
Yes.
And if we give up liberty for safety, we're not going to have either. You're going to have someone come in that's going to go, you know what? I want to follow Zeke Rodriguez around. I'm going to use whatever Zeke's doing against him. You don't have any liberty at that point.
Man, that's such a beautiful point because I truly believe that this is just basically a surveillance system, a panopticonic style system where they can monitor everything that we do, everything, and they want to control our thoughts. And that is the essence of liberty. We've got to be able to have our own thoughts, man.
Well, once the algorithm picks up on what you're looking at, I was looking at buying something here a while back, and then I looked on one website. Well, hell, on the TV, it starts popping up all these ads for this. And I bought one of the things that
I got
and
you.
it was still throwing the ads at me.
Yeah,
just bombarding me with ads for this one thing, and I was like, don't need it.
I've caught it knowing what I'm thinking, it'll put stuff on my screen like an ad or something that I haven't even said out loud. I haven't talked to anybody about. It's maybe a
predictive.
thought, yeah, and it's so scary that they're already able to predict your thought. And that was like I noticed they doing that a while ago, like a year or so ago. So imagine what they got now. But I feel like these AI data centers, it's not a good thing. President Trump just signed an executive order to make them get built faster. So there's a lot of things that I don't agree with President Trump. I'm like 60, 70% on board, maybe even 80% on board with everything President Trump's doing right now. And I'll always be loyal. I'm a loyalist. I say that on the show all the time. I love President Trump. I'll always love him. But these AI data centers, I don't hear anything good about them, man.
Well, then again, I mean, I grew up in the 1960s when, you know, we were all afraid of the Russians, and it was the Cold War, and we were afraid we were going to get bombed into oblivion. But then I remember the Apollo program when, you know, Kennedy had stood up in 1962 and said, by the end of the decade, we're going to put a man on the moon.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm going to date myself a little bit here, but one of our neighbors got a microwave oven. It was 1967, 68. It's the first one I ever saw. And I remember everybody talking, the adults at the time, and they said, well, they developed those through the space program. I mean, there can be good to it. There can be peel-offs that are good for us, but overall, is in a micro sense, is it good for humanity to have a machine knowing what you're going to think and trying to tell you what to think? That was the one thing that people my age were done. Everybody goes, well, you're ancient. Well, you know what? I learned how to read. I learned how to write. I learned how to think. And if you teach people those three things, I figured out a lot of things in my life based on those three skill sets.
Yeah.
So being able to think independently, I'm very high level. I score very high on critical thinking. So
yeah, you do, and you're very well spoken. Obviously, it speaks to you being an attorney, but you know, for this AI stuff, it's like I don't really trust it. I don't trust so much advanced technology because I know we have other advanced technology. You know, there's compact fusion reactors. We've had access to free energy technology for quite some time to my research. They just don't let us have it. For whatever reason, there's some ominous force behind that's whatever's ruling this world, and they don't want us to thrive as a species. And it's like the higher level technologies, it's like it's good at first, but it always seems to be like at the end of the day, it's like it destroys us. You know, it's kind of like we're selling our soul in a way, you know?
Well, I remember that old Star Trek episode because I'm
You're
a TOS fan, and I
Okay.
remember that episode, The Ultimate Computer, when this guy came up with this computer that they could plug in and it could run the Enterprise, and Kirk is sitting there kind of feeling left out, but then the thing goes berserk and goes on a rampage and kills a bunch of people, and they're
There
like,
you go.
and then
There you go.
a lot of good writing in that show. But I remember Dr. McCoy told him, said, this ship don't run on circuits and relays. It runs on the crew's loyalty to the captain.
Right.
And I mean, that translates exactly into what we're talking about now.
Right.
You can't automate, but so what the hell are people going to do when you automate everything?
Yeah, that's exactly what scares me. It's like, what are we going to do? And they talk about that. Elon Musk and other, you know, AI tech moguls. They're like, look, if AI keeps going the way it's going, and I don't know what they mean by that. What he means by this, he said, we're not going to need to really work. We're going to have so much abundance. And I'm like,
That's not biblical.
That doesn't compute. Yeah, that's not biblical. That's not biblical. So I get worried about this AI stuff. I don't trust it at all. But hey, you know what? It's everywhere. It's taking us over, man. And there's really nothing we can do about it other than what we're doing right now, talking about it, making people aware about it. They use up so much resources when they're building them up. And I just don't see anything really good coming out of it, man. It's not really bettering society. Like you said, all you got to know how to do is read, write, speak well, right? And you can do a lot as a human being.
You can accomplish basically anything you want to learn in life. I mean, Abraham Lincoln was a self-taught lawyer.
That's so cool.
He was homeschooled, you know, raised in the backwoods, taught himself to read.
Wow.
Read law, which is something that when I came out of law school, Virginia, I think it was 2 other states, you could still read law. And of course, they had a very low bar pass rate because the bars didn't want those people being lawyers.
Right.
Abe Lincoln had done that and was a really good lawyer. But people are losing the ability to think critically. I see it all the time.
Yes.
And I see it in a lot of the people that I deal with, not just clients, but other attorneys and other folks that I can't go into name any names, but they'll just go, well, it's this way. And I go, why? Well, it's because that's what everybody agrees to. There's a consensus on this. And it's like, Well, have you looked at it? Have you examined it? No, but it's what everybody agrees on. So
Yeah. No, I feel the same way. I run into people, and I feel like people have gotten worse over the years. I hate to say it, but I feel like a lot of society, people have gotten worse. Groupthink has gotten worse. Of course, we had our movement with the MAGA movement, getting President Trump in there. 80 million of us about come out there and voted for President Trump, but 80 million out of all the rest of the population in the world was like 300 million. That's a smaller portion of that. And you think about the whole world in aggregate, it's like, man, I think the human species is hurting pretty bad, and then we're getting into the birth rate. People aren't getting married, people aren't having any kids anymore. I feel like the human species is on a downswing right now, but that just seems to be a pattern through history. It's like it's up and down, and we're going through some massive changes right now. We're in the fourth turning right now, where if you guys didn't know, historically, every 80 years there's a massive geopolitical shift throughout the world, throughout society. But the fourth 80-year cycle is where the most drastic changes come about. And right now we are in the fourth turning. And I do see and experience massive changes in society every day. I feel like time is just, and Nino Rodriguez talks about this. I'm a big fan of his on YouTube. And, I feel like time is just going like fast right now. So many radical changes like every day.
It gets faster when you get older because
right.
I use Christmas as a measuring stick, but Christmas comes around much more quickly. Because when you're 1 year old, it's your whole life. And then when you're 5 years old, it's 20% of your life. And now it's 1/65th of my life. So it does come around more quickly every year.
Yeah. And I know there's the theory that, well, like your reference of time is expanding, so things become shorter. But I just think even beyond my own personal point of reference of time, it's like, I think things culturally shift way faster than they did in the past. But that could just be me. I don't know. I feel like that's what I've been experiencing. So, you know what, Mike? I love to keep chatting with you about these kinds of things because I always enjoy your worldview on stuff, man. It's really refreshing, like I said before. But let's get into some controversial stuff.
Okay.
And I think this is good for you overall because this is, I think, the way that you go with this particular issue is what President Trump wants, from my understanding. But let's talk about Israel. You were someone who was in favor of Israel before, right? I mean, you feel like embellishing on that a little bit?
I have always supported Israel.
You have?
My wife and I, on our bucket list, we're going to be more retired probably this year coming up than we have been. But the year that COVID broke out, we were actually slated to do a thing called SAR-L. It's through the Israeli Defense Force. And basically you volunteer. You buy your airfare over there, and you are embedded with an Israeli Defense Force soldier for 18 to 21 days, depending on which tour you do. So they're going to have you mowing grass or cooking food or washing dishes. The ash and trash and stuff we used to call it.
It's like an immersion kind of a program thing, right?
You're just kind of the support people there. But the cool thing is you're going to be there for 2 weekends and doing Sabbath and the weekend with people who live in Israel. It's not the pre-pro package tour that you would get. They had one of the pictures was of a little old lady darning socks. She was probably 85 years old, but that's the one thing she could do. She could fix the socks for people that have holes in her socks.
We'd love seeing that.
So, but yeah, I mean, you don't have to agree with this. And I know a lot of people don't, but you know what? Israel is God's chosen people. And all of history and all of the future turns on Israel. So you can choose to accept that, or you can choose to ignore it and ignore history, everything that's in history, or you can look at it and acknowledge it like what I have done. And people go, well, you're a Bible thumper. No, I'm not talking about being a Bible thumper. I'm talking about look at history. We have our country in large part, it's called the Judeo-Christian perspective.
Right.
There's a reason why. Going back to Moses, that we draw the things that we live on. Equal protection of the law. Every man is equal before the law. Due process. All these notions that we use in the law come from that.
Right. Right. And I'm not here necessarily to argue or anything because there's still a lot I need to learn about the whole dynamics that are going on over there. And the reality is, I think, the Israelites or Jewish people are the most winningest people of the Nobel Peace Prize. They have really high IQs. They really do. And I know people who've been there, spent a lot of time there. People who are very successful. They're going to retire over there. They love it there so much. Right. And my biggest issue there is that 70% of the people do not agree with Netanyahu. he's not the most popular leader over there. But
But he's also made some really hard choices that had to be made.
right.
And when you make hard choices, you're not always the favorite person of everyone.
No, of course not. So my issues with Israel aren't necessarily against the Israeli people. I think I have more issues with certain sects of Israel, and namely Netanyahu. I'm not the biggest Netanyahu fan, but I still think that they do have a lot of control with our government. With AIPAC and everything, and that makes me feel uncomfortable as well. Just because I feel like if China had that kind of control or Russia had that kind of control, I think people would feel a lot different about it.
Well, I worked with some of the Israeli soldiers when I was at Fort Bliss back in the late 80s.
Oh wow, really?
And the last weapon system that I worked on was the Hawk system that came out in 1957.
Yes.
And we were using the second generation of Hawk, which came out in 1971. This was like 1989. And Israel had developed that thing, and they were on the 10th generation of it. And it was still a completely viable system. They were using it. We were using old vacuum tube radar scopes
Old
that would
school.
burn your retinas in your eyes if you used them.
Old
Transistor cards and the radars, but they had brought this stuff up. They were using IBM PCs to run the same thing that we were using antique stuff.
Yeah, from the 50s. Jeez.
But it's because they were, and we shared a lot of information, especially air defense, even back then,
Right.
with Iron Dome and Patriot and THAAD. Those were all things that when I was in there,
Wow.
I knew a lot about those things. But we've shared intel, we've shared technology. We benefit from the technology you're absolutely correct. The Jewish people are some of the smartest people in the world. And one of the funniest things in the world is these people that think they're going to go over and get in a fight with Israel and win. It's like, you don't beat the Israeli Defense Force. Those guys, it's like the airborne. If you ever watch the movie Band of Brothers, they're used to fighting surrounded.
Yeah. I have a lot of respect for the Israeli military. And I actually was hanging out with, he's a Jew. He's a Mexican Jew. He's literally, his dad is from.
There is such, I know
There's
that
a
there is
lot
such
of
a
them.
thing.
They have a whole and he's down here in southern New Mexico. He's from Mexico City, but he moved back up here to Santa Teresa, and we were kind of going back and forth on this particular issue. He was kind of vetting me out to see if I was a radical or whatever. But and I told him, hey, you know what? I have a lot of respect for the Jews. They've won all these Nobel Peace Prizes. They have really high IQs. He's like, well, the thing is that they're some of the most unattractive men in the world. And I was like, you know why? Because they don't need to be attractive. They got all the money. They got enough money. They can get whatever girl they want. It don't matter what they look like. He really started to laugh at that. He thought that was entertaining. But no, look,
A lot of the women are really attractive. I'll say that for them. If they lose it on the men's side, they gain it on the female side.
That's what they were talking about. I was hanging out with a group of people that had been to Israel before, and they were like, man, it's so beautiful there. The women are so beautiful. The guys, not so much, for whatever that matters.
But Israel is the only Western government in the Mideast. And you can be in Israel, you can be a Christian, you can be a Muslim, you can be Israeli, you can be an atheist, and you have in the Israeli Constitution equal rights with everyone else, just like we do. But you go to some of the other countries that surround them, even countries that we're allies with, and you say, I'm a Christian. They're like, well, we're going to put you over here and put you in a box. You don't get to do that.
Right.
So
yeah, that's true. No, I understand it. I understand what's going on. That's just an issue that we had to get out there, and that it can get me in a lot of trouble. It's gonna maybe get you in a little bit of trouble, but I think it's fair to talk about. I think it's fair for people to understand where I'm at in this position. I think your position is very popular. A lot of people think and agree with what you're saying here.
A lot of people don't,
and a lot of people don't. So
that's okay, because you could disagree with me, and I can disagree with you and be agreeable.
That's true.
You were actually with me a couple of years ago when we did the campaign, and we went to a vineyard over south of Messiah one night.
Yeah.
And you told me, get up and introduce yourself. So I was just going around saying, I'm Michael Caine, I'm running for DA. And this one lady just went ballistic. She said, you're a Trumper.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just kind of looked around. I was like, what are you talking about? And she said, are you a Trumper?
Yeah.
And I just said, I told her husband, I was kind of being a smart aleck, but I was just like, I'm sorry your wife can't handle her alcohol. I kind of walked
and
off.
she was drunk. She was drunk. And for those who don't know, I do campaign strategy and campaign management. That's how me and Mike had gotten so close. I was managing his campaign at the time. And running as a Republican is not the easiest thing to do in New Mexico, especially here in Las Cruces. We had a lot of support. You had a lot of love and a lot of support because it was during the 2024 election with President Trump. So we had gotten a lot of support, but in that instance, yeah, that lady had lost her cool big time, man.
But if you look geographically, to the west of us, we have Arizona. To the north, we have Colorado. And to the east, we have Texas. And all three of those, not Colorado so much, but for sure Arizona and Texas, are nowhere near being bastions of Democrat
No.
government. And they're all prosperous. And yet we sit here and we're not prosperous. And yet people still go, well, gee, if we just vote for Deb will have it figured out. Based on what? The woman's never produced one thing of value in her life. All she's ever been is a bureaucrat.
Doesn't it blow your mind that people support her? I mean, she's obviously super incompetent and she's just awful in so many ways. Everything she's got involved with has just been utter destruction and embarrassment. And
she can't answer questions.
She can't answer basic questions. And people are still out there in the streets campaigning with her. And it blows my mind. That's the kind of stuff that makes me lose faith in humanity, bro. I'll be honest with you. That's
easy
the kind
to
of stuff.
do.
You know what I mean? Like I cannot stand Deb Hall. And I said this the other day. I did a post about it, but I'm gonna seriously consider moving to Texas if Deb Haaland figures out a way to get in the office, because I don't want to deal with it anymore. I'd rather go hold down the fort on someone that has a better stronghold somewhere in Texas than deal with somewhere like here that's been overtaken. I don't think she's gonna win. I have a good feeling about the election coming up. I've been getting, as I get older, I've been getting better at listening to my gut, and my gut tells me that I shouldn't be too worried about it. Although I am still working very hard to make sure that a conservative gets in that office here personally. So we're getting up here pretty quick, man. We burned through almost an hour here, man. We'll get into some other stuff real quick. I mean, I think we hit everything. Let's talk about Trump and Iran. I like this topic because I've been right about it since day one, and I told everybody I don't think Trump should go into Iran. I think it's a bad idea. We've known for decades that it's a bad idea. They'll never give up. Even if you take out the Ayatollah, they're never going to give up, and they're not giving up. And now our economy's tanking. The price of beef is up 15% right now. I just saw a post about it today that so many barbecue joints in Houston are closing because they just can't afford to stay open anymore.
Well, I was reading about the beef thing the other day. I'll kind of lead with that, but the beef producers have had some real problems. They got hit first of all with COVID.
Right.
Cost of feed went up. Then they've had some disease that got into the cattle stock, and a lot of them couldn't afford to feed the cattle when Biden got elected. And if you remember on day one, he shut down domestic energy production, which caused the price of everything to go up for global warming, in his words, which everybody was all okay with that. So I don't know that the cost of food is all inclusive into the Iranian thing, but this thing's been coming for 47 years.
That's true.
The original reason I went into the military was we thought we were going to World War III with Iran.
Right,
To
yeah.
start for it. When the Iranian hostage crisis happened, and people are, man, you're really old. I'm like, that's when I went in the military.
Yeah.
I came home from school. I was going to college. I wasn't doing so good. And I came home one day. My grandpa told me, he said, dude, you're not doing very good in college. We're getting ready to go to World War III. You better go down and pick out which service you want to go to war in. So I went down and saw all the recruiters. That was the impetus for me going into the military. But I just don't think we can kick that down the road anymore. I don't think it was an easy decision for the president to decide to do this. I don't think he's doing it for personal glory. I think he sees it as a necessary thing that we had to do.
And I see where you're going with that, because there's videos of Trump back in the 80s saying he wants to hammer Iran.
Like in 1980.
He wants to hammer them. And so I have my position on this because I knew that it was a tough decision. I didn't want to have... I feel like we were in a more sensitive spot with the economy than we needed to be to do something like this. But hey, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you most of the way, because President Trump knows things that I don't know, and for all I know, this is something that they had to do. They had to get us through this now rather than later. I leave it open for that.
I think all the intel was, though, that they had enough fissile material, and we were talking about plutonium, but there's a problem with uranium. There's both.
Right.
You can make a bomb out of either one. He's not being unrealistic in his demands of what he's asking of them. They have said in no uncertain terms they will bomb Israel into a glowing ember if they get a bomb, and we just can't allow it. It's one of our strongest allies.
I understand that too. And what I think I've always kind of said and qualified my position on this is, like, look, in politics, especially when you consider like the polling numbers and President Trump, there's always an ebb and flow, a statistical curve and dip, and with peaks and valleys. And I always trusted that President Trump would get us out of this rut with Iran just in time for the midterms. You know,
Well,
he
I
want
think what he wants to do, though, because I've been following this pretty closely, he's wanting to actually push Iran into the Abraham Accords,
okay.
which that what he envisions is, if I'm reading correctly, he understands that economics work better than war in a lot of cases. Now, I'm gonna give you a little bit of history on this. I was in the military when the Berlin Wall fell. But 5 or 6 years before the Berlin Wall fell, it was a big deal back in the 84, 85 time frame. They built a McDonald's and a Burger King and a Pizza Hut in Red Square in Russia. And I was a young second lieutenant in the Army, and I was going around laughing. I said, "It's over, man, game over." I mean, we were all quoting the movie Aliens at that point, but
Game over,
it's
man.
game over. We're never going to bomb our own Burger King and McDonald's.
Yeah.
And
that's sound logic.
it is logic, and I think that people will always, irrespective of their religious beliefs, they will always act in their own economic best interest. And if we can put if he can put together a common market over there, sort of like what they've got in Europe, but where they're all producing and benefiting from the same things, so that they all economically rely on each other. You take away the incentive to want to go out and wage holy war on people. And I mean, again, you get the benefit of age here, but back before the Iranian hostage crisis, before the first Ayatollah took over, Iran was a modern Western civilization. I mean, it was. I hear people that are from there refer to themselves as Persians. I know a number of people who are from Iran whose families left, and they'll tell you right now they think what's happening is the greatest thing that ever happened.
And that's another sound point, man, because I saw that too. You look at these pictures of them back in the 60s and the 70s before,
Women were in modern clothing. They were going to university. They were at the beach in a bikini. I mean, I'm not just using.
I don't want them there. I don't like that either. But I just look at how vulnerable it made us as a country when we just got President Trump in there. We still haven't, fully started to build ourselves back yet, and we're over here going back to another war. I didn't like that, but I think the benefits outweigh the negatives at this point. I really do.
But he's not regime building, and that was the mistake we made with Iraq and what we made with Afghanistan. We were trying to do regime building there, and that's never going to work.
Well, thinking about Venezuela is all they did is they put on the vice president who's just another commie, and I didn't like that either. I thought we were going to actually put in someone, have an election. They didn't have an election. So that scares me what they're going to do over there in Iran. And now he wants to go to Colombia. So his foreign policy, I'm really ary about it. I'm like, I don't necessarily agree with his foreign policy all that much.
I think it's a little ambitious. I would say that. I think he's a little over ambitious on some of that.
Yeah.
But again, if you get back to it, he's a transactional person. He's a person that's used to looking, because those of us who are in business do this. We look at it and go, "There's a problem that needs to be fixed," and your inclination is, "I want to go fix that problem." And I think that's what he's doing. I think I don't know Trump. I've never met him, but I mean, that's the way he comes across to me.
Well, it's a funny thing. I'm kind of over here criticizing his foreign policy and stuff, but I'm such a loyalist. I'm such a bootlicker with President Trump.
But I'm not.
I am, because look, when President Biden was in there and the gas prices went up 10 cents, and I was pissed. I was posting stuff on social media, but I don't even care that the gas prices have President Trump right now, because I'm just like, give the guy some time, give him some space. I do trust that in the end he's doing the right thing for the American people. I truly do. If I didn't, I would tell you. But as far as his local policy is concerned, I love it. He's doing a lot of amazing stuff, like putting an executive order to get rid of the mail-in ballots. Having people, these states like Mississippi, there was a Supreme Court ruling recently because Mississippi and a handful of other states, including New Mexico, are able to count ballots, even though if they're postmarked, but by the election day, they can count ballots up to 5 days after the election. Now, that's just ridiculous. But he put the Supreme Court and plus his executive orders regulating this are about to rule on it here at the end of June, early July. They're going to rule on this. So you have to count everything that came in on election day. Okay, now that's from 1845 law, and that would drastically change how we do our elections here in New Mexico. And here in Doñana in particular, I did the research, guys. We haven't counted the ballots on election day since 2018. In every major election, we've never counted the ballots on election day.
And that makes people leery and makes them question the how genuine elections are. And that's the problem.
Right.
No one, Democrats or Republicans, neither one trust elections anymore.
No.
You know, for years you heard the Republicans say, well, the Democrats stole the election. Okay, well then when Trump got elected, then the Democrats started hollering, well, Trump stole the election.
That's
Nobody,
right.
and they all use it for, we called it cannon fodder in the military. You know, you're just going to throw it out there and let it get shot at. But the fact of the matter is that when you've got such non-rules of people voting, you're not requiring any form of ID, and that's not a racist thing.
No.
I mean, that's just not.
That's basic.
Every single person in this country, even if they're a poor person in Alabama or whoever it is they think they're trying to protect, they've got an ID or they wouldn't be able to get public assistance. They wouldn't be able to get a driver's license. They wouldn't be able to go to school, public school. Their kids are in public school. They've got to have
You can't really function in American
can't.
society without an identification
You
card.
can't. I mean, it's just even people that I know that you would call left wing Democrats agree that's a dumb battle to fight. There's no logic to that battle.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing too. It's one of the most unifying issues I've ever seen. Like 76% of Democrats agree we need to have voter ID. It's like 90% of Republicans feel like we need to have voter ID. We all want voter ID, but yet here we go.
You can't go vote in Mexico if you don't have voter ID.
Man,
I mean, their elections are more secure than ours.
Mexico's not even a country. I don't like that country at all. I don't feel like it's even a real country. I mean, it's a complete farce. The cartels run that place. Other globalists run that place. It's not. They don't have a real government that can enforce the law there. It's the cartels. So I don't consider it a real country.
Cartels have run just loose down there.
I don't consider it a real country. I just don't. I don't think it's real. I think it's propped up by us and other dark forces that are here in America and other Western countries and other globalist bankers. They use that country to do whatever they want to do. Just like Venezuela was like the king of all the drugs. Actually, Mexico worked for Venezuela because Venezuela had all the money, all the oil money. So this whole South America thing, I think I would rather Trump deal with that than Iran. But hey, maybe he's going to go there after. And that's what it seems like he's going to be doing, right? He's going to deal with Iran. And as soon as he's done with that, he's going to come back over here to Colombia and start dealing with all that stuff.
Well, I'll step back in history here because I'm a Desert Storm era vet. I was in the reserves when Desert Storm broke out. And my unit was mobilized. We didn't deploy, but I did mobilize for Desert Storm.
Right.
And we had bad intel that led us to go do Desert Storm. But
right.
You got to keep in mind, Saddam was sitting there saying, I've got weapons of mass destruction. He had used them on the Kurds. He had used them on Iran. He'd used them on his own people. He was threatening. Then he goes into Kuwait, and that was sort of the thing that broke the camel's back. But after it was all over, done and said with, they were out there digging through the sand. It was like, well, we can't find these weapons of mass destruction. Maybe he hid them. I think we had bad intel. And maybe we had bad intel this time because you're dealing with a closed society. It's like North Korea. It's really, really, really tough to get good intel. And I know we've got geosynchronous satellites that are right above everything that's important out there, and they're watching it. But even then, you can only do so much, and you have to look at it and try to draw patterns and conclusions and analyze the data you have. But I think there's some pretty good proof that Iran has enough material. They're not making enriched uranium because for a nuclear power plant, you only need like 3 to 5%, I believe I'm telling you right, enriched uranium to run a nuclear power plant. When you get up above 75, 80%, 90%, now you're in weapons grade. And that's what they're doing. They're not doing that for their own defense. They're going to do it to export terrorism. And they have it. It's not a matter of they're going to get it. They have it. I mean, now they're talking about having to go up and dig up some of the bomb craters that we left over there back in February and March to try to find the residue of the uranium and plutonium that were left over there. So
right.
The stuff's there, and they intend to use it. They'll do anything. But in their society, life has no value. They don't care. They'll put a bunch of kids in a hospital, and then they'll store weapons in. That's another thing. Is I was educated on the law of land warfare when I was an officer in the Army, and the general rule is you can't shoot a church, you can't shoot a school, you can't shoot a hospital, you can't target civilian things like that. But if the enemy chooses to hide weapons there or attack you from there, that becomes a legitimate target. So you have a society there, the ones in charge of that society have no regard whatsoever for it. They don't care if they themselves get blown to atoms. They don't care because they think that they're doing a wholly unjust thing, whatever. But with that, they don't care. They could care less how many kids get killed. It doesn't matter to them.
No, it's all very spiritual for them. You know, it's an honor to, you know, they sacrifice themselves for their way of life or whatever. I mean, it's like, look at France, like yeah, I know good Muslims. I do know some good people who practice Islam, but like, look at the stuff that they're doing in France. I saw that today in Paris. You know what I mean? They just completely literally burning down the Eiffel Tower over a soccer game. And I had some people that I talked to recently that were just there for like a week, and they said it was the most horrible experience that they'd ever been through. It was just crime everywhere, dirt everywhere, trash everywhere. It was a disgusting adventure that they were on there in Paris. So, you know, the Muslim nation is not, Islam for that matter, is not compatible with Western society. It's not compatible with our Constitution at all.
The fundamentalists, Islamists, I think is the term that's used.
Islamist, yeah. Whatever.
Those people, that is an absolutely incompatible mindset or worldview with Western civilization.
100% Sharia law, man. We can't. Sharia law is completely antithetical to what the principles were that founded this country, and we just got to be real about that. And I think a lot of people agree with us on that. You know, you hear about stuff. You see that stuff in Paris, you know, you see stuff going on around the country, and it's like people just don't like it, but for whatever reason, they're flooding our country with it. Look what's going on over there in freaking Minneapolis. You know, they're finally starting.
There's whole communities there where the police are not allowed to come in.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, only Sharia law. They got their own. Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
Just nuts.
That is crazy.
I mean, I'm not familiar of any community in Western North Carolina where there's a Southern Baptist community where we're like, well, this is Southern Baptist law over here. You can't come in here. And the sheriffs would be like, yeah, try that and see how that works for you. And it's like, they wouldn't play that stuff. That's nonsense. That's crazy. The land you live in, you got to obey the law of the land.
Yeah. Yeah, no, hey, man, you know, we're coming up here on the hour right now. It was a really fast hour. Really great talking to you, Mike. Thank you so much for coming on, man. You gotta come back on again here sometime soon.
I'll be
man.
glad to.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back on. Maybe we'll have everything ready so we can have Alice and you. We'll have a better setup so we can actually have a really good panel. But no, we hit some really good topics today. I'm glad that the folks got to get to know you because I really want you to run for office again, man. I think you've got the great background. You've got a great worldview, great mindset, and you're poised for it career-wise, right? You're coming up at that time of your career where maybe you could start running for office again.
I might think about it. I don't know.
Seriously consider it. Come on, folks. Tell Michael Caine to run for office again. Come on.
I'm looking at retirement with. I'm going, man, it'd be really nice to be sitting on the beach this morning.
The wife is saying no, and you got to have the wife support, so that's a big one. That's a big one. But either way, no, man, you're a friend of mine. You're a true American. You're a true patriot. It's always great talking to you. It's an honor to get to know you, and we're just so glad to have you here on the show. In case you didn't know, I do end the show on a prayer, so we're going to say a quick prayer and end the show. Thank you guys for tuning in. Lord, thank you so much for allowing us to share our information with the community yet again, Lord, and bringing here Michael Caine, this man of character and this strong force of truth here in our community. And I just pray that you continue to protect us, Lord, and guide us through these crazy times, these tumultuous times. And I pray for all the candidates right now that are running for office and the election on Tuesday. I pray that your word gets in these offices, Lord, that the people who are elected on Tuesday are there for your message, and so we can all live better lives in your way, Lord. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Yeah. That was the worst prayer I've done all year. But either way, love you guys. Thank you again, Mike. Thanks, Leanne, for joining us. Have a great day, guys. Thanks.